lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we'll be reviewing Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which was released April 17th, 2026, exclusively in theaters. Now, Rowan, Lee Cronin has been making a name for himself for a little while now in the horror filmmaking world. Of course, more recently with the latest entry in the Evil Dead franchise, Evil Dead Rise. But before that, with this little A24 changeling indie darling, The Hole in the Ground. Having covered one of these films on the show before and not the other, I was wondering, are you a fan of Lee Cronin's work? Or maybe you're just a fan of Brendan Fraser or Tom Cruise or The Mummy? By extension, were you looking forward to Lee Cronin's The Mummy?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not in the spoiler section yet. We're not going to talk about when any of those Brendan Fraser cameos come up later on.
Save that.
Yeah, save that. I mean, the only thing I've seen from him is Evil Dead Rise.
Okay.
Which I kind of need the rewatch. Obviously, I think when we talked about it, I was like a little disappointed in it. Wasn't what I was expecting.
We both gave it an okay. I went back and looked.
Yeah, so, I mean, I remember not being huge on it at the time. You know, I've already made the joke plenty of times off the podcast that I thought this was Leigh Whannell's The Mummy. That's what I've told everyone that's asked about it.
Wolfman.
Yeah, telling everyone, well, Wolfman wasn't very good. I don't know if you want to go see this or not, or just wait till it comes out. It's not Leigh Whannell, apparently, so totally different guy. But yeah, I mean, I guess I was like somewhat interested. I don't have a lot of Mummy experience. The Mummy is a blind spot for the Universal horror stuff. I've never seen any of the mummies.
Boris Karloff,
yeah. Which I know is like, I feel like most people say that's like kind of the worst one of the Universal horrors. It was only like 2 years ago, I think, that I saw the Brendan Fraser The Mummy, and I wasn't a fan of it.
So just a blind spot for you.
Yeah, I'd never seen it. I thought it was really long. I feel like that movie's like almost 3 hours long, and I just didn't overly enjoy it. And you would think I have seen Tom Cruise's The Mummy. I'm going to have to see it. My boy Cruise there. And I mean, he just saved cinema. So I'm sure people were just hating it's a banger. But yeah, so not much Mummy experience here. And I was like somewhat looking forward to it, I guess. You know me, I'm a whore for Blumhouse. So bring it on, Blumhouse. Do your worst. What about you?
Before I tell you, with Tom Cruise as The Mummy, have you at least seen that trailer that they accidentally put out with none of the audio, and you can just hear Tom Cruise screaming in
Yes,
the airplane?
I did see
Okay.
that.
All right, that's important. That's that's crucial to understanding this movie, of course. Otherwise, you would have missed out on a very big plot point, I'm sure. Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Was I looking forward to this? Yes, actually. Yeah. Largely just because I heard kind of some groundswell of this being a very good idea as to why this movie even exists. As we know, Brendan Fraser's, I think, 4th Mummy movie is currently in production. You know, they're going to be releasing it within the next year or two. So much so that a lot of people, when they went to see the early test screenings of this movie, thought it was going to be the Brendan Fraser Mummy, which is why this movie is now called Lee Cronin's The Mummy, to make it clear this isn't Brendan Fraser's Mummy, which it is most certainly not. But also just kind of when you're hearing the murmuring of these test screenings and kind of some early screenings to select press, you're hearing about how this is it's a reinvention of the Mummy franchise. It's seriously messed up. It's mean. It's this sort of thing like you kind of have to see it. Everyone was kind of talking about it, about how like disturbing it was. You know, it doesn't shy away from child death, and some of the things you see in this are going to affect you forever. That sort of talk, which, it kind of overhypes the movie, especially if you're a horror fan. But this was one that for those reasons, I avoided the trailer for it. I didn't watch the trailer before all the movies we've been checking out the past couple of months. And, I saw Lee Cronin's The Hole in the Ground when it was released for A24. I liked it. It was a very slow burn, as a lot of A24 movies are. It was changeling mythology in Ireland, which, I don't fuck with fairies and changelings, really. I find it kind of tough through a horror lens, but that movie was good. So I was looking forward to that. Evil Dead Rise was all right. It was just not really an Evil Dead movie and just kind of over the top is kind of what I found. So I was hoping The Mummy, for some reason, I was hoping it was going to be reined in, not really crazy, and just more of an actual movie about these people's daughter that's gone missing was kind of what I was expecting. With Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, I have seen The Mummy 1 and 2. I can't remember if we talked about it on that episode where we kind of talked about our childhood trauma horror. The Mummy Returns is the first movie that I think you could kind of even classify as a horror outside of Jurassic Park that I watched, and I found it scary. It was, it was like The Mummy Returns, and then shortly thereafter I watched Ghost Ship, and those were kind of the two formative horror movies that I can remember from that period, and then eventually like Freddy vs. Jason at a sleepover. But during that period, I did see those, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And Tom Cruise's The Mummy is awful. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, you could probably go read a 1,000-word review on my Letterboxd about Tom Cruise.
So you're telling me after we record in the middle of the night, I need to rush, put it on my TV.
You should. You'll probably enjoy it for what it was,
probably.
But I remember it being like a garbage fire, like dumpster fire movie. So yeah, I was looking forward to Lee Cronin's The Mummy. So should have this one been kept under wraps? Well, before we get into that, let's throw it on over to the trailer.
I wish I didn't have to show you. But it's very important you see. What happened, Katie?
Don't worry, Grandma. It's fun to be dead.
Cronin's The Mummy. Rated R. Friday.
Lee Cronin's The Mummy was written and directed by, you guessed it, Lee Cronin, and the story is as follows. The young daughter of a journalist disappears into the desert without a trace. 8 years later, the broken family is shocked when she is returned to them, as what should be a joyful reunion turns into a living nightmare. Now here on Now Slaying, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free up front before getting into the more in-depth, spoiler-filled discussion. So Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on Lee Cronin's The Mummy?
I feel like you really just missed out in the synopsis to say directed by Lee Whannell. But that's okay.
I guess I could have thrown a curveball there.
Spoiler-free thoughts. Well, did you rate Evil Dead Rise a slay? Then you will definitely give Lee Cronin's The Mummy a slay, because this is Evil Dead Rise. This is literally that movie.
It's very similar. I think one inversion where Evil Dead Rise is like evil mommy.
Yeah.
This is evil older sister, old daughter, spoilers for the general premise of the movie, I guess,
I mean, to me, I'm hoping you're not listening to this having not even seen a trailer or something. I don't know how you would escape the trailer, because I've seen the trailer 8 million times.
I had to actively dissociate and look at my phone and just scroll or keep my headphones in.
But I mean, everything you kind of said that people were talking about, I think is somewhat true. This is very mean, almost maybe one of the meaner things I can think about that Blumhouse is done. This definitely just has a feel where I was it doesn't even really feel like a Blumhouse movie.
There's not a lot of winking at the camera or quipping or any sorts of real jokes. Your humor in this is maybe a little you'll never chuckle. You might smirk every 30 minutes at one thing.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a tall task because there's so much weight with The Mummy. I mean, whether or not, like I said, I've never seen it, but whether or not you like the Universal stuff, I mean, even if people are saying that it's not very good, The Mummy is an iconic franchise, even in the 30s and stuff, I mean, The Mummy had multiple spin-offs and all this kind of stuff. So you are dealing with a very historic franchise. And to me, I don't know if Lee Cronin really cares, which may help him in a way. If you were into that style of mean, kind of visceral for visceral sake, although I will argue that I think it's a little toned down.
It is.
I feel like someone came in and was all right, we got to tone a little bit of this down.
There are nastier moments and more messed up gore in Evil Dead Rise for sure. And a lot of what you see here, they already did to some degree in Evil Dead
Yes.
Rise, which, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to talk about this movie without mentioning Evil Dead Rise a dozen times.
No one is going to convince me that this wasn't originally a script, that he thought for sure they were going to tap him for another Evil Dead movie, and he already had this in the bag, and then it was like, no.
I agree.
And I get it. I mean, I'm sure this was a far better opportunity than doing another Evil Dead, like, Blumhouse and what the other companies associated with are tapping you saying, hey, we want you to come revive like this iconic franchise. So of course you're going to say yes to it, but it's like, oh, I've already got a script of this like Evil Dead movie. So let's just kind of retrofit it into put the family in Cairo and have like some Egyptian lore in it.
We'll force the Egyptian mummy stuff into this script. Yeah. Essentially, we'll make the space for it. And also by doing that, it'll make it 45 minutes longer, by the way, because it was probably a 90-minute script to begin with.
100%. You could feel this being stretched so far apart. And I think I think it's really a shame, because if they somehow could have compacted like 45 minutes of this myth into like 10 minutes or something, I think like maybe you could have had like something at least just like in and out, fun, gory, just whatever, and it wouldn't have been offensive. But to me, it's like highly offensive that this is like 2.5 hours long, and that extra time of lore building I don't think matters. I don't think the lore's built very well in it. I don't think it's overly explained to you that well. I think the movie kind of waits way too long to show its hand on how everything works.
I agree with that. I think I like some of the lore stuff better than you, just because I do think the main bones of this movie is very derivative. We've seen this numerous times of the possessed little girl, more or less. I mean, come on. No one's going to do The Exorcist better than The Exorcist, so I don't know why we're still trying, But yeah, I mean, it takes probably an hour and 40 minutes before it reveals how this is the mummy, or how the mummification has happened in the movie, which is strange, to say the least.
And then, I mean, like, you've got Jack Reynor. Is he allowed to be in anything other than MIDSOMMAR? I'm not sure if...
I saw him in Sing Street before MIDSOMMAR, and he was great in Sing Street as kind of like the older brother who smokes a lot of pot and like listens to cool music. He was great in that role. I like him in MIDSOMMAR for what he is, obviously like a shitty boyfriend. He is literally playing the catatonic boyfriend stuffed into the bear suit in this movie. There was so many points at which I was wondering, are you allowed to give any emotion at all? Your daughter is getting, stolen away in the streets of Cairo, and you're lumbering after her barely shouting. I don't know, you're getting angry in this police scene, but only when it's appropriate to get angry. When it's like, the beats of the scene, you need to be angry. I'm sorry, man. This dude, I like Jack Reynor and the couple things I've seen him in, and this, tough watch.
It's really tough.
I'm not a father myself, hopefully one day I will be, but like, I was just like, this guy is not giving like dad energy, and his emotional responses to everything was basically catatonic. He was basically more so a mummy in the movie than the fucking mummy. So, it's tough.
I'm going to put out the good vibes for you that when you do have a child and it inevitably is kidnapped in Cairo and turned into a mummy, that you will give more emotion.
I'll turn on, at least I'll try and sprint full for a block or two before I get winded. Not just, lumber along like I'm going out to check the mail.
I had a serious MIDSOMMAR issue going on where I can tell that movie imprinted on me, because the entire time I was watching him, I was like, is his eyes too big? Is his eyes doing a weird thing? Is that just me?
No. Were you experiencing like an acid trip at the time, or some
I
mushrooms
thought maybe,
or something?
It's just his eyes. His eyes. Now that I've seen MIDSOMMAR, it's just I see him and I'm convinced his eyes are doing something weird. He's some sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's just really bizarre to me how much Evil Dead this is. Like how much the character of the mummy, the other characters that I'm not even gonna like get into until the spoiler section, are shaped, model, acted, like looked like Evil Dead. It blows my mind that he had this opportunity to be like, hey, I can do this too. I can make this crazy in its own right. And it's just like, to me, it almost seems like a punt. It's like, I do this thing now. This is what I do. Yeah. Maybe he's sad that he's not doing Evil Dead Burns. So he's like,
I feel like I read somewhere that he exited it, though. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head the ebbs and flows of it. Obviously, he didn't direct it, but I can't remember if it was his decision or the studio's decision. But either way, what we're getting here, you haven't seen The Hole in the Ground? The Hole in the Ground is about a kid going missing in the woods, disappearing into a hole, and then reappearing after like a year has passed. And the mother doesn't, like, it looks like her son, but she thinks there's something off with her son, right? Which is like, it's basically like a mummy, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, with no budget and no possession that we can really avail of, like gore, right? So It's just like Creepy Kid, the movie, coming out of a hole in the ground, like a changeling story. So when you think about what he did before this movie, it is both of them mashed up into a movie and just made more mean with a higher budget, with some Egyptian trappings, thrown around it.
Yeah, and I did like some. I thought May Calamway, that plays the detective, like the Egyptian detective, I thought she was all right. I honestly kind of wish we got a little more of her.
So that's where you were kind of telling about like the Egyptian explanation and the lore, which I won't get into. But what I will say is the sequences of the movie where maybe you get like 10 to 15 minutes with her just to once again explain some shit and reveal some shit way too late in the movie. I felt like that was a breath of fresh air in the movie that I was watching. I was like, this is like a little discount Fincher sequence, searching for like, let's say a serial killer or something, I enjoyed that sequence and I was like, why wasn't this whole movie kind of set in Cairo or, at least kind of had this infused throughout it?
Those were kind of the bright spots for me. And then obviously, everyone's going to be talking about Natalie Grace as Katie. The makeup was like somewhat gnarly. I don't know. I'll be honest, it wasn't giving me Mummy to be 100% now. I mean, it's hard.
Outside of one gory effect that is supposed to be Mummy through the revelation, I agree. It was like leathery, worn skin, and honestly, it just gives demonic possession that we've seen in a lot of other movies. With your black makeup and the crawling on the ceiling sort of stuff, all those sorts of things,
Yeah, and I get it. I get how hard it must be, because when I'm thinking about, iconic horror characters that you're trying not to make them look like super cheesy, and how do you make them not kind of funny? The Mummy's probably like number one, the hardest to do. It's just like a thing wrapped in toilet paper, essentially. So it's like, I don't want it to look like that. It's just, I felt like it needed some more time to just maybe cook on this idea of how this mummy was gonna like look and feel. I just, I can't hit hard enough that it's too long. It's too much like Evil Dead. And when we do get to talking about our audience, I'll let you know why. But one woman did walk out of this in my theater.
Oh,
so, there you go. What are some of your initial thoughts, though?
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I think the word that I would use to describe this is that this is a mess.
Yeah.
And I truly don't know who to blame other than the guy's name who's on the movie is Lee Cronin. I have to blame him. You mentioned that May Calamway is given a good performance. She's fine. But what I will say is there's nobody in this movie that gives a consistently good performance. There are times at which when Larissa, who's the mother, gives a good performance. There's times at which Katie gives a decent performance, and the detective, or even Abuela, the grandmother, gives a good performance. Nobody gives a good performance throughout this movie consistently. It ebbs and flows, and sometimes they act the way a person should act, which is great. Sometimes they're a weird robot. Sometimes they just vanish from the movie for 20 minutes, and it's like, this is a horrific thing for a family to be experiencing, but grandma vanished for this set piece, and I don't know why. She's sharing the house with them. This horrific thing happens that impacts other members of your family, but they still proceed with their lives as per usual, and then address it after the fact, after time has passed. It is confusing and confounding how many different like plot issues and just like logic issues in this movie. And it's like, you're applying logic to a mummy movie, Colton. Like, obviously it's stupid, but I mean like literally how people live their lives, logic issues and stuff. It's very strange that I had a really hard time watching a lot of it and kind of enjoying it, really. It was very much like I saw this all in Evil Dead Rise, and I was bored silly for a lot of it. And a lot of it just didn't make sense to me. Just even from like the cold open, which, you know, is kind of, you know, you're with an Egyptian family. It's like the way this is shot is a little bit strange. The mother is like way too evil and over the top. A death that is featured in this cold open looks really bad with like weird CGI over it, and you know, then the title treatment comes up and that's not very cool either. And it's just, there's all these things right away in the beginning that's starting the movie off on the wrong foot for me, and then it never really got on the right foot. Even stuff like we go into basically like Katie's abduction stuff, the specifics on how that happened is so protracted and so awkward and weird, and it's kind of silly, but like unintentionally so, that it isn't scary really in any way, shape, or form. It's just strange how all the way it plays out that I just, once again, didn't like it. I don't know. It's the sort of thing where basically everything I can kind of point to is probably better discussed in the spoiler section, because there's a lot of specifics. But it's like this movie does literally just feel like another entry in the Evil Dead franchise, the new Evil Dead franchise, the mean Evil Dead franchise. And like, sure, it's gross and gory. People are spitting and throwing up and doing whatever, you know, fluids everywhere sort of movie, of course. And, you know, everyone's doing it through gross, ugly teeth and look dirty and all this stuff. You know, we've seen it. It's just, there was like a remarkably low body count for what it was. And I'm going to say, like, the movie didn't scare me at any point. Not like nothing, not even close to scaring me at any point. The horror in this movie is just how gross it is, I guess. And it's like, if you find this gross, which of course, if this happened in real life, anybody would find this gross. But, you know, we're looking at it as like these are fun practical effects or crazy CGI or shitty CGI, that it doesn't really do much for me outside of that. The only portions of the movie I really enjoyed was the Egyptian kind of part that we mentioned with the detective. Everything else, I don't know. I didn't really enjoy too much. Also, stylistically, way too many split diopter shots. I don't know if your eye is like mine, where it's like I instantly spot a split diopter as soon as it is on the screen. For our listeners that for some reason don't know what a split diopter shot, it's like the person in the foreground is in focus the same as the person in the background, and essentially they use a special camera lens that's split in the middle so you can split the focus, which usually creates kind of this blurred effect in the middle of the field. And it's a very showy camera lens choice that kind of conveys oftentimes like disorienting, right? It's something that was like overused at a certain point and kind of fell out of favor. I shit you not, this movie uses it about 20 to 30 times for sure. It's basically like whenever Katie's on screen with like a parent, they feature them both. You have vertical split diopters, which is like the classic way, split in the middle. You have horizontal, you have Dutch angle, askew angles. It's all over the place, and it's so showy and like in your face, but also pointless, which is like, once again, it's a lot of this movie. You got a lot of money. You're doing a lot of things. You got a crazy runtime, 2 hours and 13 minutes for a mummy movie. It's like insane. You're up in that like Tom Cruise the Mummy territory. And it's just like, it feels like it doesn't know what it's doing. It feels like it's just a mess. And, you know, CGI bullshit third act that we've seen 100 times. If you've seen The Conjuring, or any Conjuring movie or any bad possession movie, you've seen this ending. And also there's too many endings, because the movie had an ending that I thought was at least okay. And then it just keeps going. So yeah, no, I don't have too much good to say about this.
I mean, there'll be lots to say in the spoiler section, but I agree. I thought there was definitely like 3 or 4 times where I was like, okay, we're wrapping up. And then it's like, oh, I guess we're not wrapping up. Let's just keep it going. And it was like unnecessarily keeping it going, where it's like, okay, you go, we get the point. You like, this is a proper place to end the story.
I know, I completely agree. And that runtime really drags on. You know, I was checking my phone, I think like an hour, checking my watch like an hour and 35 minutes in and being like, oh my God, I still got 45, 50 minutes left of this yet, and not looking forward to it. I think what's kind of sad about this movie is that I do think reinventing is probably too strong of a word for what they were trying to do here, but at least changing the mummy mythos and framing it around like a lost child or something like that could have been interesting if they actually set it all in Egypt, really leaned into that mythology and kind of explained it through that lens. This isn't a spoiler to say, but essentially they take all the Egyptian mythology and just sum it up into a demon. You know, and of course, ever since Hereditary, every demon has to have a cool name. So this one has a cool name too. But it's like, once again, it's so derivative. For some reason, this movie was being pitched as this completely new take and like, you know, this is unique and novel and we've never seen this before. And when I was watching it, it was just like, I've seen all of this before. A lot of it in Evil Dead Rise. And if I hadn't seen it in Evil Dead Rise, I've seen it in a bunch of other possession horror movies. And then it's like, all the performances are bad. I don't like at least completely inconsistent performances. I don't like the stylistic choices. The logic and plot and whatnot makes no sense. I think this movie was 3 hours long and they edited it down to make it 2 hours and 13 because there's lots of stuff that I will point out because I made a list that just doesn't make sense in the movie, just from a character level. That it's very strange, where it's clear like they took a shot that they filmed that was supposed to be in the world on the same day, and then they just put it later in the movie. Stuff like that, completely reshuffling shit to try and make it work. I think this was like, I don't know, basically like a hack job, like to get this at 2 hours and 13 minutes. I bet like it was way longer than that. And I don't know, it's just, I wouldn't recommend that you rush out and see this in theaters, is what I'll say. I don't know if you have anything else to say before you want to recommend it or not.
I would say no. That to me, this is like kind of a streaming one, which makes me really sad. It's a Blumhouse. I'm wanting to go see Blumhouse movies, but this to me might be more offensive than like me going to see Night Swim or something. Like they just, I think, as you said, they're asking a lot for the long run time and not enough payoff, or I don't think. So to me, this is something like maybe throw it on when it comes on Netflix or Crave or whatever it's going to come on. So it's going to be a not recommend for me.
So with that, it seems like neither of us are recommend you check this one out in theaters right away. And with that, I think it's time to cut to our spoiler discussion for Lee Cronin's The Mummy. We are now in our spoiler discussion for Lee Cronin's The Mummy, so if you've not seen Lee Cronin's The Mummy, it's time to tune out and come back once you've seen the movie, or keep listening if you simply don't care. Rowan, I don't know if there's something you want to talk about right away in the spoiler-filled section. Like I said, I got a list of just like weird plot shit I can run down.
Yeah, why don't you do that? I mean, all I'll say is that, I left you with a cliffhanger. Woman walked out of the theater.
Yeah.
Too gory for her.
Is that what she said?
Yeah, she was there with, I don't know, her family or something. It was like maybe like a 40-year-old, 50-year-old. She was there with 3 other people, and she said, "This is disgusting." And then she got up and she walked out and she never came back. That was like an hour or less into it.
Where in particular? Was it the nail peel?
I feel like it was like around there, like some, throwing up or something like that. And she was out just too gross for her,
fair enough,
too extreme, as they say. But yes, let's start with this list. Let's run down this list because probably
I got 6 items.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fly through them just because I don't want to get into it too much. Maybe there'll be stuff that you can explain or obviously lend your voice to. Of course, it's it's conversation. But for example, Katie rampaging through the house in this crawl space.
Yeah.
The grandma at this point in time, they are living in their grandmother's house. She's been established as a strong character. She's, obviously has this affection for Katie. She's trying to work through this essentially incredible, like, physical and mental disability that their child has come back. Like, if we take the mummy possession angle of this movie, it is basically someone losing their child, and after 8 years, them being returned after being, imprisoned, and basically are fundamentally changed forever. Physically, mentally, they have to be tended on hand and foot. This is a very real thing in terms of just caring for, a very severely developmentally delayed child. And lots of people obviously find ways to love these children and care for them. And this grandmother in the movie is trying to do that within her first couple scenes of seeing this kid. But Katie, the first night she's there, she goes on a rampage, rampaging through the walls. She's eating like bugs in the crawl space. Everyone's woken up. It's crashing through the walls, all this stuff. It's crazy. Grandma, nowhere to be found. I don't know why. I don't know why she's not present. It's her house. Nowhere to be found, never mentioned by Grandma. Katie, she gets her toenail ripped off, the skin peeled like from her big toe all the way up to basically her knee. Obviously, you know, it's mended and they're kind of bandaged up. And this kind of prompts the discussion between the mother and the father of, are we really capable of caring for this child, giving her the, you know, the attention she needs? Are we going to like basically derail our lives and our livelihoods to care for our child? Obviously, a very prominent discussion, an important discussion that needs to be had. Jack Reynor wants to get rid of her. The mother doesn't want to. Basically tells him, like, listen, I really need you to be here. And he says he's going to be there. The movie, not comedically, because when I say this is going to sound comedically, the movie earnestly kind of fades out from this conversation of like, yep, they've reached an understanding. They need to care for Katie. Fades back up. And he's just in an archaeology 101 lecture because it's the time of the movie to start learning about the mummy. And it's just like, okay, like we just learned, like you have a severely injured kid at home. You have 2 other going to school. I don't know why you're not at your job. You're just hearing this archaeology 101 lecture, like not caring at all for your family. And it's very strange to me. I'm like, that is not like the proper trajectory that the father should have followed. And I would understand if the movie was constantly trying to portray him as a deadbeat, but they're not entirely all the time. And so much so that throughout the course of the movie, he comes around to be the loving father and caring for her and whatnot. So it's very strange, but like that's the way he goes. Maud, the little sister, she gets her toes licked, becomes possessed, levitates off the floor. Very scary horror image that we've seen numerous times in these possession movies. We end with her levitating midair. You know, we cut. And it's just like, I don't know, some normal bullshit of the parents, you know, just living their lives. Eventually we cut back to Maud and she's in school and she's still like catatonic and she's kind of mumbling stuff and clearly possessed, you know, and then she calls her teacher, I think like a rat-faced cunt or something.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how did you get to school? You know, how did you even get there? Your parents didn't notice that you were off. They just drove you to school. You weren't sick that day. You weren't just stuck there. Like, did they come and like pull on your leg to bring you down from when you were levitating? It was just like, once again, it's strange shit like this. The same day of the rat-faced cunt incident, there's a scene earlier in the movie where they show that there's a bunch of coyotes outside their house.
Yes,
and obviously this has something to do with the mummy, right? Coyotes are here. They've now been back and forth through this house numerous times. Coyotes have never been present at any other point, but they make a big deal over it the first day she's been there. They return days later, and there's this discussion had like, oh, where have the coyotes gone? Like, it was originally structured that this was clearly supposed to be at the end of the first day of them going to school and coming back and the coyotes are gone. But for whatever reason, they edited it like way later in the movie. So now it seems like their house has just been swarmed by coyotes for all this time.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
Well, and they don't give any explanation like, oh, now the coyotes are gone. And like you said, it makes zero sense. And then it's all there for
and
the
the coyotes
payoff.
come back conveniently to kill the grandmother and to disembowel her for some reason. It's just, for me, it's like, once again, like this scene was clearly the sister scene to them leaving the house in the morning to go to school and go to work. Of like, there's a bunch of coyotes here. This is weird. And then when they come back, the coyotes are gone. But instead they put it like where temporally it would be like 3 or 4 days later. And they're all, you know, they make a point of saying, oh, they're gone now. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's 4 days later. Was your house just, once again, encircled by coyotes? It makes no sense. Funeral for grandma. We'll talk about, I'm sure, specifics of the scene at some point. But, you know, to gloss over it, pandemonium breaks loose, you know. We got Katie on the ceiling. We got, you know, Maud biting people on the neck. You know, it's gross, blood, embalming fluid, all this shit everywhere. It's crazy, chunks out of people. Seems like it's very much ramping up to kind of be like an all-out possession scene, like moving in terms of a climax. It very much peaks, and then it just cuts, and it's like, oh yeah, everyone cleared out of the house. Like, there's no fallout for what happened. Maud is just in a wheelchair, like strapped down. Katie's like strapped in the bed or something like that, chained in a room, whatever. And it's like, how did that happen though? Like, there was like 20 people here. Like the way this should have happened is like all the people storming out of the funeral. Like realistically, we should have seen that happen. This should have prompted a lot of discussion. This should have prompted like investigation by child services. There's a bunch of shit that probably should have happened from seeing this happen to so many people. But instead the movie just like excuses all of that. And it's like, no, let's just get to the point where they're all sitting in the room again and everyone's just chill. And then inexplicably, Sebastian gets possessed, where up until this moment, we have kind of shown that the possession, for lack of a better word, is kind of passed on through a touch or maybe saliva, maybe, I don't know, for some reason it's passed on, like from like person to person through clearly like touch or something like that. But he's just possessed now, and he's banging his head against the wall, and or banging his head against the bedpost. I don't know how this happened. And sure, you might look at some of these things that I just pointed out and be like, Colton, you're being like nitpicky. You're going into things. The thing is that if one of these happened in a movie, you just go, whatever. Or a couple of these things happen in a movie, you go, whatever. This is happening consistently, like every 10 to 15 minutes of this movie, where people are just acting in a way that doesn't make sense. The mother that just told you that, like, she's going to be here to care for her daughter, and she's tearfully telling you this, and she's going to tend to her, she's vanished for the next 20 minutes of the movie, not there. Grandma is not there during a possession sequence. The dad isn't there to help. It's like they forgot that they had to direct actors and, like, create actual characters to make this movie. Things just happen in this movie because it's time for them to happen, not because the characters made them happen. And it's very baffling to me the entire time. So like there's probably like numerous other things that I can write down, but most of the time in this movie, the characters aren't just behaving the way that they should be, or like a real person would ever behave. And I understand, like, it's a horror movie. Not everyone behaves the way we would behave. Lots of us wouldn't go into the creepy house to explore it. It's just, when you're trying to kind of package this movie as this child endangerment movie with these parents that are trying to like pull their life back together and care for her, that there's no consistency in the way in which they're doing that, and no consistency in the powers of the child or what is happening or how to subdue her. It is just a mess, and consistently a mess throughout. I understand if you enjoy it on the base level of gore and gross and meanness. It's just like, guys, there's so many other movies that are better that you can see this in. You know, you don't have to watch Lee Cronin's The Mummy to get this stuff.
Well, and I can understand that kind of thought process, because while I was watching this, because I'm stuck in this, 2 hour and 15 minute hell, like I'm trying to cling on to that, where I'm like, okay, like we're in something gross. Like, let me just try to like revel in the, the gross and the disgusting, and I'm just literally trying to find anything to grab onto to just be like, okay, this is making my time worth watching this. And yeah, it's really hard because, like you said, there's so many things that don't make sense. The whole, like, this possession, infection, whatever being spread, yet again, another Evil Dead thing. Like Evil Dead, this was everything they do in this to possess people is exactly what they've done in like some Evil Dead movie. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, Evil Dead, they're passing it on. I didn't understand it also. So like you said, like the grandmother in the funeral home, like she's dead. Katie drops down the ceiling, like bites the neck of the body. Next thing we know, she's alive. Makeup, deadites. Like they literally talk and act like deadites. The grandmother like makes a joke about Jack Reynor like eating her out essentially. Yeah. And I'm like, this is like literally Evil Dead jokes. Like 100%. This is deadites. That even the eyes, everything is, they are made in the vision of Evil Dead Rises deadites. They look just like them. But I didn't get, like, because then the preacher that was there during the funeral service, he got bit in the neck. Yep. He didn't turn into, this discount deadite that apparently...
Or at least not that we've seen. I don't know. There might be a deleted scene that takes place at a church or something. I don't know.
But I mean, this is another case where like he gets bit in the neck and everything, and then that's the end of it. We don't know what happened to him. We're just back at the house and everyone's gone. It's like, I don't know. We just had characters visiting your home that apparently had things done to them that this spreads or infects. I almost thought we were going to get like a Dead Alive thing going on here, where we also get like people attending the funeral that eat eggs with the blood in it.
With blood on it.
Which they made sure we knew that they purposefully like put blood in the food.
The way this is all building up, if you're somebody who's watching this movie for the first time, you would assume that this movie is building up to a big deadite, for lack of a better word, climax at this funeral sequence. It very much feels like they are going to start possessing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 people, and it's going to be absolute carnage. And I don't know what the purpose of a lot of these little moments were in the scene, if not for that. And once again, it cuts on kind of a moment of duress, I believe, when Maud is chomping into this guy's throat. And it just cuts and it's like, okay, you remember all that carnage. You literally had grandma leaking embalming fluid out the bite in her neck, got dropped on by her granddaughter from the ceiling. Just forget about all that. Everything's fine now. Everyone's gone home. Everything's cleaned up. These two girls are subdued and they're in their beds, or, you know, in a wheelchair and in their bed. And it's just, once again, it's just, I don't know. There's like not an understanding of audience expectation and just like narrative flow in this movie. And I think the only reason that it doesn't continue on is just because it's like unnecessarily we got to drag out the length until the Egyptian detective gets here. You know, it's I don't know, it's very strange.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, as we've alluded, like, you know, there's lots of fluids coming out of mouths, like puke, black puke that eats through things, I guess. Obviously, that's how
it's
Katie
like
gets out of the room.
It's going through the floor, so eventually she digs through the floor. There's a couple of ideas that I liked where there seems to be a moment in the movie where the hot water heater is filled up with sand, I would think. By the way, they turn it off in the basement and there seems to be like a sandstorm kind of outside. And it's the sort of thing where I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Like the Mummy bringing the sands with them. That's neat. They turn off the hot water heater and then eventually there's just water again and it's never addressed. And it's like, sure, I guess they could have got the hot water heater changed off screen. I don't know if we needed a whole plot line about the hot water heater. But it's just, once again, it's like the lack of consistency and the lack of payoff and the lack of like almost understanding like why you put these things in a movie was very like, once again, I keep saying it was strange or sloppy or messy, but it was. It was just like, once again, why is this in here? There's no payoff for the hot water heater other than it being, oh, cool, there's a mummy there. Shouldn't have something to do with sand. And then that's how they come up with it.
Well, and I mean, also towards the beginning when we're getting to the kidnapping, like there's a giant citywide sandstorm. Yeah. And we can't get one Daru drop anywhere in here. Like, what's going on?
Disrespectful.
Like,
it was a perfect moment to put some EDM in. Absolutely.
That's right. I mean, listen,
maybe it could have helped our guy, Jack Reynor, actually quicken the pace. You know, if he was stepping on like 140 beats per minute, just going.
You know what? Yeah. He's like, let's get it. Puts the earphones in. He's like, I got to channel my inner Tom Cruise. I'm going to run a lot. You know, let's run. Let's do it. But yeah, I mean, it's just so much of this is nonsense. And like I said, like some of the gore stuff, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, you know, I thought the toenail thing was like, I was like, oh yeah, that's
it's gross, but we have seen like toenail gore before. I mean, it's not the first time we've ever seen something like this, getting a nail ripped off, fingernail or whatever, you know.
I just found that so much of it, I was like, oh yeah, this is a little gross, but it was like it always stopped before I think it could have been like, whoa, shit, like this is pretty wild. Like they always just seem to either like pan away or cut to something different where I was like, we see the initial thing, but anything for me to overly make any of this gore or yuckiness like memorable, they just kind of, it's like, no, we got to tone it in a little bit here. So I didn't know if that was a Blumhouse effect or something.
The only two moments of this movie at all that made me go like, oh, okay, that's neat, or oh, that's a crazy gore effect is, you know, the toenail rip that you just said. But it wasn't because of the rip. It was because of the explanation after the fact with kind of the writing on the inside of, you know, almost like, oh, okay, cool. There was like mummy wraps inside of her with, you know, code on it, cipher, basically, to try and keep the demon at bay. I was like, okay, that's kind of neat.
Then becomes the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the moment where grandma's getting her neck chomped on and it's embalming fluid leaking out of her. Kind of gross. I've never seen, I don't think, embalming fluid leaking out of somebody like that. I wonder if any of that could actually happen. Anyways, that was like a little bit like, oh, okay, that's something I haven't seen before. But once again, not like so gross and disgusting that I would remember it much out of, I don't know, in 3 weeks' time. I don't know if I'll be able to tell you of the two key moments in this movie I thought were kind of interesting.
I will say what creeped me out was kind of in the climax when the detective puts her finger in her throat, and I was like, oh, I was just thinking about that. I was like, man, that would suck. I just kept thinking about infection. I was like, the infection's going to be wild in that.
Yeah, this sort of movie, I only watched it 3 or 4 days ago, and I already forgot about, like, you know, the detective's throat in the climax, having to cover it up so she can speak the words of this mummification ritual, which I guess let's get into just like the specifics of the mummification stuff, just because The movie goes through great lengths to kind of explain the whole demonic origin of this. This is a Nazarenian. It's a demonic force that's known as the destroyer of families. We get this through the repeated word of Nazarenian, I believe, on the scripture that was found in the toenail rip. And, it's this, we get this lauded history of basically, in order to keep the Nazarenian at bay, they've been doing this mummification rituals for 80 plus years, or 80 plus times. So decades or, centuries. And how we get some of this revealed is through what we've been calling kind of the Egyptian David Fincher, hunting a serial killer segment, which it's so funny to be watching this movie and have this happen. But essentially it's the father gets a keyword, Layla, which I thought this was another very interesting moment with the teeth chattering being Morse code.
Yes.
I did like that. I thought that was interesting. It's one of the few things I can give this movie praise for. So the daughter, Katie, her teeth are chattering in such a way that it's Morse code. It's set up in the beginning that she's like part of the Cairo Girl Scouts learning Morse code. And this reveals a name, Layla, which prompts the detective to do some digging and try and find people with, the name Layla. And eventually she gets the surname through a card that's in, the family finds. Anyways, this protracted explanation to lead the detective to a nectarine farm in this valley in Cairo that's soon going to be flooded for some reason. And basically they have to move the family farm and the family goods. And part of that move was moving the sarcophagus that Katie's in. But when we're there, it is literally like, I feel like I've seen this construction in like a Seven or a Mindhunter or something like that, where someone kind of breaks into a house and they're skulking around. They're making some discoveries. They're seeing some messed up shit. Maybe even like a True Detective. And then, they come across the perpetrator and they fire the shot and you think they're dead. And, there's someone else outside and you got to chase them and all this stuff. I've seen all this before, but seeing it in Egypt in my Lee Cronin's The Mummy movie, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. This is fine. And basically it leads to like a young girl who got the end of her tongue cut off and a VHS tape that shows this whole ritual that's, basically
the tongue cut off without
a
real good reason. It's just like I spoke the truth or something.
Yeah, it seems like she was trying to tell somebody about Katie chained up in the basement, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, and the VHS tape's just from Bring Her Back. It's basically the same thing. Explaining all of the specifics on how to do the mummification ritual and all the words you gotta say just to make sure that anyone can do this by the third act of the movie. And a lot of this I liked. Like I said, a lot of this I thought was pretty good. If this movie wasn't 2 hours and 15 minutes, it might be enough to even bump it up, to give it like a more positive slant a little bit.
Yeah.
But since this is like 10, 15 minutes in a 2 hour and 13-minute movie, 14-minute movie, I can't give it much more props than like, oh, okay, I like some of this. If this was like True Detective Cairo, I'd be down for this.
I couldn't believe I felt the same way because I'm always bitching about like, the goddamn cop stories or the detective stories in this, where I thought, this might actually be kind of a cool premise of this mummy movie, but it's like through the lens of this like Fincher like detective story. And like to me, that's like an interesting original premise. But I guess it's easier just to copy your last movie.
Yeah, I did like that stuff. But once again, it's only because it was a reprieve from Discount The Exorcist mixed with Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah.
Because once again, it's just an inversion of possessed mom to possessed older sister. That's all it is. And of course, learning this mummification ritual is all leading to the end of the movie, which I don't know how you felt about any of this. Did you like this weird everyone's possessed ending? The dad has to sacrifice himself and get his daughter to vomit into his mouth. And
yeah, I mean, it was just weird. And then vomit into his mouth, and so he can later on vomit in someone else's mouth. And, because we get the reveal that the shot perpetrator isn't actually dead. She's like in a institution.
Yeah, let's do the original ending first, and then we'll go to that, because this climax I thought was so messy. It's a bunch of people chasing around, scratching each other, and getting flipped and biting each other. And anyways, I didn't care for really any of it, and I was barely even staying awake. Not because I was tired, just because I was so bored. Like like this is the sort of stuff that happens so many times that it's just forgettable. It's even like Undertone a months ago did a very like lower budget version of this ending, and it is just anything that has to do with like demons or demonic possession has to end this way. And It's just like, God, guys, we got to figure out a different way to end these movies, because all this CGI bullshit and just people screaming and cursing and biting each other is just, it's not the way anymore. You know, it's just no good. But yeah, basically this cultivates in the father becoming the mummy through the detective from Cairo showing up in person to give all this information and putting a finger in her throat because it's been damaged.
By
in
a
order
scorpion.
To say, yeah, oh, I forgot the specifics. Yeah, by a scorpion crawling in her mouth. And
another
then
thing they
out
never
her throat.
explain is like the scorpion, the bug that goes in the girl's mouth when Katie's mouth when she's kidnapped. Like, I get it because, you know, like I've seen enough, you know, I've seen a lad, I don't know, I've seen movies that have like scarabs in it and what they kind of represent in movies and stuff. But like, never really explained like what this scarab does, why the scarab's going in your mouth, you know, why these deadites are just spitting out scorpions in the other people's mouths. It's
just like, I think, an abstraction of the mummy and Egypt and what lives there, scorpions and scarabs.
I just kept thinking this is like white guys make a movie about Egypt. They're like scorpions,
absolutely, yeah. It's like the candy there has to be called like King Tut's treasure, you know. Which I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. But yeah, basically it all leads into Jack Reynor becoming the mummy, and then we wind up getting an ending to this movie that is kind of cute, kind of that I would say like, okay, this is all right. Still not a good movie, but you know, it might bump it up to completely mediocre maybe if it just ended here, where they go down into the basement. You know, it's revealed that Jack Reynor is in a coffin, basically his own sarcophagus over here, all chained up, can't move at all, but he's knocking Morse code on the coffin, and his daughter, Katie, who has now made a pretty remarkable recovery overall, is able to interpret the Morse code that basically he's saying that he loves them, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, perfect. That's the ending of your movie. Good. And then we get this stupid, contrived ending, as you already alluded to, of the character known as the Magician. The evil mother from the opening of the movie. The woman that was shot by our detective in the nectarine plantation in Cairo is alive and in a jail cell. And once again, it's like the detective gets into the jail cell and brings the mother in, pushing Jack Reynor mummy in a wheelchair, and they do the mummification ritual in the cell to transfer the mummy to the evil woman to end the movie, so Jack Reynor is no longer the mummy.
Well, you forget too that when they wheeled him in, he's got like the hood on, like it looks like a boxer's hood, like robe. It's very tall. Yeah. And then it pans, it shows his face, and he's like smiling like a comic book villain. He's got like a little smirk on.
Okay, he's doing the Joker.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's an awful ending that to me reeks of test screening notes.
Yeah.
It reeks to me like you tested this too many times with audiences, and a lot of people were like, yeah, I mean, the movie was all right, it was gross, it was okay, but I mean, the ending is such a downer. Oh my God, the family goes through all this, the dad goes through all this, and he doesn't even get to be with his daughters anymore, or his family, and then they come up with this stupid, contrived way to end this movie to give the magician evil mother character her due. And yeah, it was bad. Very, very bad ending to this movie, where I was like, you know what? It's kind of a fitting ending to Lee Cronin's The Mummy, because it has ideas. None of them are really coherent or well explored. It's a completely mess, jumbled of a bunch of different things. And, like there are every moments in this movie every now and then where you stumble into something neat or something cool. It's just you can't land the plane. You can't make good with it. I don't know what happened with this. So, I don't know. There's not too much else I'd want to say about the movie.
No,
I mean, once again, Katie's abduction scene is so goofy, with the woman offering her candy and then the woman offering her an apple, and the woman basically being like, but the last thing I offer you, you're not going to like. You're going to have to eat the scarab, and it flies into her mouth. Is so goofy and so bad that, yeah, how about, And with that, so if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So, Rowan, what would you give Lee Cronin's The Mummy?
So we'll see. I feel like I'm going to be higher than you. I feel I don't like this at all, but I feel it's about as offensive as I thought Evil Dead Rise was. There was like a couple gore moments. I was like, okay, it's way too long. It's way, way too long. But I just couldn't bring it like lower than an okay, because I was just like, I guess I was comparing it to like other Blumhouse stuff, and I was just like, I don't know, like I might rather put this on than like something else. I mean,
You'd rather watch this than Night Swim?
I don't know.
Night Swim's like
what was
90
the other
minutes.
One? Afraid? Was that the? I feel like Afraid. For some reason, I've had Afraid on the brain. The bad
Afraid's
AI
pretty
one.
bad. Yeah, I mean the AI one. But I mean,
I guess I could just see me putting this on before that, because I could see me being like, oh yeah, you've never seen this, like, I throw it on at work or something, and like I could see like more of your normal friends maybe being like, oh yeah, that's kind of gross. You'd be like that woman, maybe just walk right out and be like, this is disgusting. So I couldn't get lower than an okay, but I want you to know it's like a bottom of the floor okay. Like you can't get any lower in an okay than this. To me, the highlight of this was simply the fact that we did get to see like a little clip of Sebastian Van Schick's Evil Dead Burn. That was the highlight of my time, was the getting to see that.
You know what? Before I review this, because I'm going to give it an A. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about the Evil Dead Burn. That was kind of, I don't know if I'd go so far to say that it was my highlight of the screening. I did enjoy it, It was just the sort of thing for me that it felt very showy and full of CGI bullshit. It felt like we were watching the ending of the movie where a bunch of nonsense is happening and we're following our heroine, our final girl, through this house. It's like follows her in a oneer. She's on the floor, and then there's like, I don't know, people flying across, furniture getting moved, things exploding all over the place. And then it just says Evil Dead Burn. But it really worked for you? Got you excited for it?
Yeah, super excited. I mean, I've just been excited, period. I'm a big fan of his first movie, Infested. I thought it was brilliant. It shot brilliant. It's the first person I've seen, make a spider movie that was actually scary as shit. And
I'm going to have to check it out. I still haven't seen it.
It's scary and like not silly, which is like very hard to kind of mix, and it's just everything about it was like, just when you see a great new director and you're like, oh yeah, like they've got something, and I'm excited to see what he does in the Evil Dead world. And I think you could translate, right? Like, I think spiders are kind of silly, deadites are kind of silly, so it would be interesting to see him bring this more serious brand, especially following Evil Dead Rise, where it tried to make it more serious, but to get his twist on it, I think will be interesting. If I had to guess, I think it's going to be shot a lot more competently than Evil Dead Rise. Because I know when Infested came out, the big thing was like he just has a very good eye when it comes to the cinematography and stuff of his work.
Well, if he keeps it to only 1 or 2 split diopter shots,
then
and not
you're
20, then I'm happy.
There you go.
But yeah, for me, as I mentioned, Lee Cronin's The Mummy is going to be an A. I'm going to say when I left the theater, I was going to say this is a completely thoroughly mediocre movie and kind of give it a 2.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
But when I looked at how I felt about Evil Dead Rise, which was a 3-star, and I can still remember some things that I liked in that movie, certain performances and whatnot. I recounted this movie to a couple of my friends, and I couldn't tell them anything I really enjoyed about the movie. Or that I liked much at all. And so much of it was so incompetent and messy and just didn't make sense in really any way, shape, or form that like I have to lean on an A. I don't think occasionally stumbling into neat ideas like a Morse code callback of the chattering teeth and then the coffin, especially when you don't make good on it and actually close the movie with something like that, or, the scripture on the wrap inside Katie's skin, or, sand in the hot water heater. It's just like, oh, I didn't think a mummy movie would have that. Occasionally having something like that that's neat over the course of a 2-hour and 13-minute movie is not enough for me to say, like, positively, even an okay on this. Just because, once again, all of the actors are not giving good performances throughout. There's, every now and then they get a good scene, but it's not consistent. All the logic and plot issues. Basically it being completely derivative of Evil Dead Rise and The Exorcist and a couple of other movies we've seen, or even The Hole in the Ground. It's just, there's nothing here for me really to enjoy. And then stylistically, I hated all the split diopter shots. And I swear to God, if you have an eye for that and you watch this movie, you are going to see it 20 times at least, which is crazy. So yeah, it's way too long, and just basically on every single level that I would enjoy of a movie throughout, it just didn't have much to offer. So that's enough for me to dip it, even with some cool ideas and some, having actors perform every now and then pretty good, to, a negative territory. It is like a strong nay in terms of like it's almost an okay for me. But I mean, if I gave Evil Dead Rise an okay, I can't give this an okay. I mean, that movie was 100%. Better than this for sure, so.
Now, would it go up? Let's say we're in the room, the Katie's like causing havoc, everyone's biting everyone, and then like the sound's muffled and you hear the sound of a Vespa motor coming up to the house, and then Russell Crowe comes to expel these demons.
Yeah, I mean, it would bump it up
territory,
a little bit. Could you imagine if it was setting up for the Cairo detective to come in and save the day, and all of a sudden it's just Russell Crowe as, the swollen
or they're
Pope's
storing the
exorcist
magician in the prison of the Pope International Headquarters.
Holy shit. Yeah, I mean, these are some great ideas that, maybe I would have felt a little bit more favorably about it. But it's going to be an A from me. And if you're not following us on our socials already, you can do so at It Slays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, Bluesky, TikTok. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds Holly, Nicholas, Mark, Steven, Dan, Brian, Trevor, OG James, and Philip, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Jill, and get episodes of the main show 48 hours early, or whenever Rowan chooses to edit them. Be sure to head over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. I have to shade you a little bit because we're not making good on that recently very much anymore.
Listen,
so.
If people only knew that the last episode was like 4 hours long that I had to edit and cut down, they'd know my pain, my struggles.
If only we had a host that could, keep the conversation
I know,
on
right?
rails.
Jeez.
We didn't talk about the music in this movie. I mean, some of the audio design is okay at times. I mean, it's certainly not bad. I watched this movie in IMAX. I didn't even mention that. So it was very loud and very in my face. Was there anything there that you think should make the playlist? Was there anything that jumped out at you?
No, I mean, honestly, to me, I kind of felt with this, they do kind of the Conjuring or the typical type thing where it's like we take old time music and we kind of, play it. It's playing on the radios.
Gotcha.
And, they do a Bruce Springsteen drop and the Blinded by the Light, and they've got like You Are My Sunshine, which
the Blinded by the Light one was really bad. I thought that was like playing right before they get knowledge that Katie's been found. That was very strange.
It was just a weird drop, so I doubt anything's making it. But you can go follow the playlist on Spotify at the It Slays Podcast Horrific Playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned, go into the bio, click the Linktree link, and there's a button that'll take you directly there. We upload scores or licensed music from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. So follow it. We update it pretty regularly, and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not?
And next time on the show, we're going to be covering Mother Mary. I'm pretty sure, at least. Rowan's looking at me. I don't know if
I don't know.
Okay.
When to comment.
It's David Lowery's new movie. It stars Anne Hathaway. I've been seeing the trailers for it for quite some time now.
Is that this week or next week? Yeah, sometime.
This week coming.
This week coming.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then it's the next week, that weird Hokum or the...
Oh, Hokum.
Yeah.
Yeah, May has a lot of good horror releases. I can't wait for everyone to see Obsession and see what they think about it. I might go see that again in theaters so I can actually be on the episode. And with that, I think that about wraps things up for this episode. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.